She stood up for a billionaire at night by morning. His power rocked her diner. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's video, I truly need your help. We have noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can support us. It is quick, it is free, and it allows us to keep creating meaningful stories for you. Your support means everything to us. Let us keep this channel growing together. And tell me, where are you watching from? Drop your city or your country in the comments below. Thank you so much. Tonight, a small act of courage will push a simple waitress into the path of enormous power. And by sunrise, her entire world will change because of the man she chose to defend. Now, let us return to our main character. The rain falls in thin silver lines over Harbor Light Diner. It's a 24-hour spot tucked between a pawn shop and an aging laundromat on the Brooklyn waterfront. Inside, the fluorescent lights hum low, casting a warm haze. Across cracked vinyl booths and chrome edges dulled by years of late-night footsteps, it is just past midnight when Lena Hartley, a 27-year-old waitress with tired eyes and a coffee-stained apron, wipes down the counter for the third time. She is working the graveyard shift again. The tips have been slow. Her mother's hospital bill is taped inside her locker upstairs like a quiet threat she can never outrun. Outside, the sound of raised voices cuts through the rain. Lena freezes. She hears the thump of a car door, the sharp command of a police officer, and something inside her tightens. An old memory rising like smoke from a fire she never wanted to relive. Through the fogged window, she sees two officers pressing a man against the hood of their cruiser. He is tall, wearing a soaked charcoal hoodie, his hands visible, his posture calm despite the force on him. Lena recognizes him immediately. He had been in the diner barely 10 minutes earlier, quietly drinking a black coffee and leaving a generous tip. He had looked tired but not drunk, polite, soft-spoken now. One officer is accusing him of disorderly conduct. Lena steps closer to the glass. No, something about this feels wrong. He was in her booth, under the diner's lights. The entire time the officers claim he was causing trouble. Her heart beats hard against her ribs. She should stay inside. Her boss has warned her more than once, do not get involved. Lena, we cannot survive another inspection. But outside? The man lifts his head slightly, rain dripping from his hair. And she sees the restrained fear in his eyes. Not panic, but the fear of someone who knows this could go badly no matter what he says. Lena swallows. Her throat tight. She pushes through the diner door and steps into the cold. The officers turn. Ma'am, please go back inside, one of them orders. I cannot, she says, her voice steady, even as her hands shake. That man was inside the diner the whole time. You can check the camera if you want. The officer narrows his eyes. You interfering, ma'am? No, Lena replies, lifting her chin. I am telling you the truth. The man on the hood looks at her, really looks at her, as if trying to understand why a stranger would step into the rain for him. The officers exchange a glance annoyed. Tense but after a long second they release his wrists. One mutters something about false calls before they finally drive off, tires splashing through puddles. Silence settles over the street. The man steps back, straightening his soaked hoodie. Thank you, he says quietly, his voice deep, controlled. You did not have to do that, Lena breathes out, realizing she has been holding air in her lungs. Yes, I did, she says softly. You were not doing anything wrong. He studies her for a beat, as if memorizing her face. My name is Caleb Rowan, he says. If you ever need anything, truly anything, call this number. He slips a card into her hand, plain white. Nothing but a phone number written in simple black ink. Before she can respond, he disappears into the rain. Lena stands alone under the diner's flickering neon sign, clutching the card, unaware that by sunrise, the entire city will know his real name, and her diner will feel the full weight of the power she unknowingly defended tonight. Hours later, the rain has thinned to a mist that hangs over the street like breath on glass. The neon sign of Harbor Light Diner buzzes softly as Lena steps back inside, her hair damp, her chest still tight, her boss Mr. Diaz stands behind the counter, arms folded over his apron. What were you thinking, Lena? His voice is low, but it carries. Arguing with police out front like that? You want them to shut this place down? Lena peels off her wet jacket, her fingers numb. I was only telling the truth, she says. He was not doing anything wrong. The truth does not pay inspection fees, he mutters. Next time you stay inside, understand? She nods, but the knot in her chest does not loosen. She finishes her shift in a fog, refilling coffee, wiping tables, forcing a smile that feels thin and brittle. By the time the clock above the grill ticks past 3 in the morning, her feet ache and her eyes burn. Lena climbs the narrow back stairwell to the small room she rents above the diner. The hallway smells like old paint and fried onions. Her door sticks, as always, then gives way with a soft groan. Inside, the room is barely big enough for a narrow bed. A chipped dresser and a tiny table by the window. On the wall above the bed, taped carefully in a neat row, are envelopes from the hospital, all stamped with the same red word, past due. Lena drops onto the mattress and pulls one down. She knows the number by heart, but she reads it again anyway. The cost of her mother's chemotherapy, the scans, the nights in a cold waiting room with vending machine coffee, all of it stacked into lines of dollars and cents that feel heavier than stone. She sets the envelope aside and reaches for the small tin box under her pillow. Inside is an old photograph of her mother, smiling in a nurse's uniform, and a younger Lena in a high school graduation gown. Back then, there had been talk of scholarships, of art school, of getting out. Then her mother had gotten sick. The savings had evaporated. Lena had dropped out after 1 semester to work full-time. Art turned back into doodles in the margins of order pads. Her hand brushes against something else. The card, she pulls it out and looks at it properly for the first time. It is plain, good quality cardstock, slightly damp from the rain. On the front, in clean printed letters, there are only 3 words and a number. Caleb Rowan Private Lino Company. No title. Only a name. Lena traces the ink with her thumb. She thinks of the way he looked at her, not like a fool, not like a problem, but like he was genuinely surprised anyone would stand beside him. People say things like, "Call me if you ever need anything," all the time. Most of them do not mean it. She sets the card on the small table next to the photograph. Maybe tomorrow, she whispers, echoing a promise she is almost afraid to make. Across the river, the city skyline glows against the thinning clouds as Caleb Rowan steps out of a black sedan in front of a glass tower. He moves through the private entrance of his penthouse building with the ease of someone used to key cards and silent elevators. The lobby is marble and steel, all sharp lines and soft lighting. The night doorman straightens. "Good evening, Mr. Rowan." Caleb nods politely, too tired to offer more. The encounter with the officers plays in his mind on a loop. The suspicion in their eyes, the weight of their hands on his back, the way the waitress had stepped outside anyway, voice shaking but steady. She did not know who he was. That thought stays with him. In the elevator, he swipes his card and watches the numbers climb. On the 42nd floor, the doors open to a wide, open living space with floor-to-ceiling windows that swallow the city. Silence. Rushes out to greet him. He drops his keys in a glass bowl by the door and pulls off his soaked hoodie. Underneath, he is still wearing the crisp dress shirt from the board meeting earlier, the cufflinks now shoved into his pocket. He lays the hoodie over a chair and pats down the pockets. Pulling out his wallet, his phone, a folded receipt, he unfolds the thin slip of paper. The ink is slightly smeared, but he can still make out the details. Harbor Light Diner Server. Lena black coffee. One refill at the bottom, in smaller letters. Someone has written a quick note. Stay warm out there. He did not notice it before. The words are simple, but something about them slips under his guard. Caleb walks to the window and stares out at the maze of streets and rooftops. Somewhere down there, beneath all this glass and steel, is a tired diner with a flickering sign. Somewhere above it, a young woman is lying awake, worried about bills that his company could pay with a rounding error. Rowan Holdings owns half this block, including the building that houses Harbor Light Diner. He knows that. It is one of dozens of properties on a spreadsheet he reviews every week. But tonight, for the first time, it is not a line item. It is a place where someone chose to stand between him and a badge without. Knowing his last name, he sets the receipt beside his phone and takes a slow breath. The next morning, Caleb sits in his corner office, the city spread out beneath him like a map. His assistant Dana stands by the door with a tablet in hand. Good morning. Mr. Rowan, you have the quarterly development review at 10, lunch with the mayor's office at 12, and the housing initiative briefing at 2. Add something, he says, his voice calm but firm. I want the full file on the property that contains Harbor Light Diner. Leases, renewal dates, complaints, everything. And I want to know who works the overnight shift there, especially a waitress named Lena Hartle. Caleb looks down at the receipt on his desk. At the small handwritten line, "Stay warm out there." He has spent years building towers that scrape the sky, moving numbers from one column to another, never really seeing the people at street level. But last night one of those people saw him. Not the billionaire. Not the headline. Just the man under the street lamp, for the first time in a very long time. Caleb Rowan feels something shift inside his chest. Not fear, not annoyance. Something quieter and more dangerous. A desire to step out from behind the glass and walk back into the diner that rocked his world before sunrise. The morning comes too. It's bright and too fast. By 8 o'clock, Harbor Light Diner hums with the usual weekday rhythm. The grill sizzles with bacon and hash browns. The coffee pots drip a steady stream of dark fuel into glass carafes. And the bell above the door rings every few minutes with the chime of regulars coming in from the cool. Brooklyn Air. Lena ties on a fresh apron and forces a smile as she moves between booths. Her body remembers how to do this, even if her mind is still stuck in the rain and flashing red and blue lights from the night before. Table 3 needs refills. Mr. Diaz calls from behind the counter. And please, Lena, no more drama outside. I had 2 people tell me they saw squad cars here. That is bad for business. I understand, she answers, keeping her tone even. It will not happen again. She is not sure if that is a promise or a hope. She carries a pot of coffee to a booth where 2 construction workers sit. Vests thrown over the seats beside them. One of them scrolls on his phone, eyebrows lifting. Hey, you see this? He asks his friend. Some rich guy had a run-in with the cops last night. Right here in Brooklyn? It says it was outside some diner. Lena's hand pauses for a fraction of a second over his mug. What does it say? The other man asks. The first one reads aloud from the screen. Real estate billionaire Caleb Rowan questioned by officers after anonymous call. No charges filed. Witnesses say he was calm. Police department reviewing body camera footage. The name lands like a stone in Lena's stomach. Caleb Rowan, the man in the hoodie. The man who had thanked her under the flickering sign. The man whose plain white card now rests on her bedside table upstairs. She forces her hand to move, topping off their coffee as if nothing is wrong. Anything else for you today? She asks, her voice steady. No, we are good. Thanks, one of them says. Already absorbed again in his screen, Lena walks back toward the counter, each step feeling slightly disconnected from the next. She has heard the name before. It has floated through news segments about development and housing and protests. Rowan Holdings buys buildings, renovates them, raises the rents, changes entire neighborhoods. People argue about whether that is improvement or destruction. She has always watched from a distance, too busy surviving to pick a side. Now she realizes that distance was an illusion. The address on the diner's lease, the one Mr. Diaz curses under his breath every time a renewal comes up, belongs to Rowan Holdings. Her boss turns up the volume on the small television mounted in the corner. A local news anchor speaks over footage of glass towers and city council meetings. Rowan, who rarely appears in public without a formal entourage, was reportedly alone when officers responded to a call about a disturbance. Sources say he declined to comment. The incident has sparked discussion about policing in class and gentrifying neighborhoods. Mr. Diaz shakes his head. Great, just what we need. Attention. He looks at Lena. You see what I mean now? People like that they bring cameras and problems. We are a small place. We cannot afford to be in the middle of their mess. Lena swallows hard. She wants to say that Caleb did not bring the mess. Someone else called. She wants to say that the only reason the story did not end differently was because she spoke up. Instead, she just nods and returns to wiping down the counter. The morning rush swells, then thins. Around 10:30, the diner grows quiet again. A couple of older men nurse their third cups of coffee. A young mother tries to keep her toddler from dumping sugar packets on the floor. The hum of the refrigerator and the clink of ceramic plates fill the spaces. Between small conversations, Lena thinks about going upstairs during her short break. She wants to see the card again, to reassure herself that last night was real and not a strange dream. Brought on by exhaustion, she never gets the chance. The low rumble of engines outside makes the windows vibrate just slightly. Conversations falter. Both older men look toward the street. Even the toddler stops playing with the sugar packets. Lena glances out through the glass. 2 black sport utility vehicles slide to the curb with the precision of a practiced routine. The doors open, almost in unison. Men and women in dark suits step out first, eyes scanning the sidewalk, earpieces glinting for a moment in the light. They move with coordinated purpose, not quite military, but close. Behind them, third door opens. Caleb Rowan steps onto the sidewalk. Gone is the soaked hoodie and jeans. Today he wears a charcoal suit that fits him perfectly. A crisp white shirt and a dark tie. His hair is neatly combed, his posture relaxed but unmistakably in control. In the daylight, with his security team around him, he looks exactly like the man on the news segments and magazine covers. For a moment, no one in the diner moves. Mr. Diaz's mouth falls open. "You have got to be kidding me," he whispers. The bell above the door chimes as Caleb walks in, the suits spreading out just enough to give him space without making the small restaurant feel invaded. The air changes, stretched tight between curiosity and fear. Every eye turns toward him. Lena stands behind the counter, coffee pot in hand, heart pounding loud enough that she can hear it in her ears. She is not sure whether she wants him to recognize her or to walk out and forget this place exists. Caleb's gaze moves slowly around the diner, taking in the faded menu board, the cracked red booths, the chrome napkin holders lined up in a row. Then his eyes find her. For a brief second, his expression softens. "Good morning," he says, his voice calm, carrying easily in the quiet room. "I would like a table if that is all right." Mr. Diaz hurries forward, wiping his hands on his apron. "Of course, Mr. Rowan, any table you want. We are honored to have you here. Truly honored." Caleb gives him a polite nod, but his attention shifts back to Lena, if it is possible, he adds. "I would like her to be my server." Every head in the diner turns to look at Lena, her cheeks burn. She sets the coffee pot down carefully, afraid her hands will betray her with a tremor. "Yes," she says, her voice quieter than she intends. She clears her throat. "Yes, that is possible. Right this way." She leads him to a booth by the window, the same one where he sat alone the night before. The suits take positions near the door and along the wall, trying to look casual and failing. Caleb slides into the booth and looks up at her. "I will have what I had last night," he says. "Black coffee." There is a beat of silence. She hears again the construction worker's voice reading the news, the anchor saying the word billionaire. Her boss muttering about leases and attention. Lena nods and writes down the order even though she does not need to. Her hand feels clumsy around the pen. When she returns with the coffee, she sets the cup in front of him. He does not reach for it yet. "Miss Hartley," he says quietly, using her last name as if they are in a boardroom, not a diner. "When you have a moment, I would like to speak with you. Not as a customer and a waitress. As a man who owes you more than you realize." At the counter, Mr. Diaz watches with wide eyes. The older men in the corner lean closer to hear. Even the toddler has gone oddly still. Lena looks at Caleb. At the billionaire in a suit, sitting in a cracked vinyl booth, at the bodyguards lined up like a wall, at the familiar walls of the only place that has ever felt even slightly like hers. Something tells her that whatever he's about to say will not only rock this diner, it will change the direction of her entire life. Lena wipes her palms on her apron and glances at Mr. Diaz. He jerks his chin toward Caleb's booth. "Go," he mouths. "You heard the man." Her legs feel strangely heavy as she walks back to the table. She stops beside the booth, trying to look like this is just another order. "Just another customer. I can talk for a minute," she says. "But I still have tables." "I will not take long," Caleb answers. He gestures to the bench across from him. For a heartbeat, Lena hesitates. Waitresses do not sit with customers. That is an unspoken rule. But his eyes are steady. Everyone in the diner is already staring. She slides into the seat opposite him. Up close, he looks different and the same all at once. The suit and the groomed hair are new. The quiet watchfulness in his eyes is exactly what she remembers from the night before. "First, I want to thank you again. What you did last night was not small." Lena shakes her head. "I only told the truth." "Most people do not step between a badge and a stranger," he replies. "You did." He reaches into his inside jacket pocket and pulls out a folded sheet of paper. The din of the diner seems to fade around them. "This is a copy of the preliminary report from the precinct," he says. "Body camera footage confirms what you said. There was no disturbance. The call was false. Without your statement, that might have been buried." Lena stares at the paper, but does not take it. "I do not need proof," she says quietly. "I was there." Caleb nods as if he expected that answer. He sets the paper on the table anyway, sliding it toward her. "It is not for you," he says. "It is for when someone threatens you for speaking up. I want you to have it." The words land with a weight she did not expect. "Why would anyone threaten me?" she asks. His gaze flickers briefly toward the window, toward the street where the patrol car had idled under the rain. "Because some people do not like being contradicted," he says. "And because this diner is very small, and the people who hold power over it are very large." There is something in his tone that makes Lena's stomach tighten. "You mean your company?" she says. He does not flinch. "Yes," Caleb answers. "Rowan Holdings owns this building and several others on this block. We have been in the process of reviewing development options. That is why I was walking alone last night. I like to see places at street level before I let anyone put them into a presentation." He pauses, watching her face. "You did not tell me who you were," Lena says. It comes out more blunt than she intends. "No," he agrees. "I did not. You did not ask, and I was grateful for that for a few minutes." Her fingers curl around the edge of the table. "So what happens now?" she asks. "You come down from your office, you thank me, and then you raise the rent until Mr. Diaz has to close the doors?" A flush of embarrassment warms her cheeks as the words spill out, but she does not take them back. They are the fear that has lived in the back of her mind for months. Taking shape now that the man across from her has a name and a face, Caleb holds her gaze. There is no offense in his eyes. It's only something that looks uncomfortably like understanding. "That is one possible story," he says slowly. "It is not the one I intend to write." He folds his hands on the table. "I asked my team for the file on this building," he continues. "Your boss is on a month-to-month lease with steep increases built in. If nothing changes, you are right. Eventually, he will not be able to keep up. This place will close, and something shinier and colder will take its place." Lena feels the breath leave her chest. "So there it is," she says. "You get a coffee, I get a countdown." "Lena," he says, and her name in his voice makes her stop. "I am not here to threaten you. I am here because last night you reminded me that there are real people behind every line on my spreadsheets, people who do not have the luxury of ignoring my decisions." He glances around the diner, the faded photographs on the wall, the crooked open sign, the old couple in the corner who have been coming here since before Lena was born. "I came here to make you an offer," says Mr. Diaz. Leans so far over the counter that he nearly knocks over a stack of plates. The whole room seems to bend and toward their booth. "I am not for sale," Lena replies. The words out before she can soften them. Caleb's mouth curves, not quite a smile. I did not say you were, he answers. I am talking about the diner and the people who depend on it. He takes a slow breath, choosing his words. I have the authority to renegotiate the terms of this building's lease, he says. I can freeze increases, extend stability, and stop any eviction proceedings before they start. I can also direct legal resources to make sure what happened last night does not become a pattern in this neighborhood. Lena listens, her heart a mix of hope and suspicion. And what do you want in return? She asks. Nothing comes free. For once, Caleb says, what I want is not money. He reaches into his pocket again and places the diner receipt between them. The one with her handwriting at the bottom. Stay warm out there. Lee, I want your help, he says. Not as a waitress. As someone who already knows what this place means better than any market study, I am creating a new role, an internal liaison for community impact. I want you to tell me when we are about to make decisions that will crush someone like your boss or your mother, and I want you to be honest with me, even when it is inconvenient. Lena stares at the small piece of paper that has somehow become a bridge between their worlds. You are offering me a job, she says slowly, so I can tell you when you are being the bad guy. A hint of dry humor touches his eyes. That is one way to put it, he replies. I am offering you a chance to stand in the room where decisions are made. Instead of watching the fallout from downstairs, Lena looks around at the chipped mugs, the worn floor, the life she has built around refills and late nights. Then she looks back at the billionaire across from her, whose power has already walked through her front door, changed the air. She does not know yet if she can trust him. But for the first time, she wonders if stepping forward again like she did in the rain might be the only way to protect everything she is afraid to lose. For a long moment, Lena does not say anything. The diner feels too small for the size of the offer sitting between them. Her world has always been measured in shifts and tips and rent due dates. Now a billionaire is asking her to step into a conference room she has only ever seen on television. What if I say no? She asks finally. Caleb does not look away. Then I will still fix the lease, he says. I will still make sure no one punishes you for telling the truth. I owe you that much already, that answer throws her. You would do that even if I never walk into your building? She asks. Yes, he says simply. Because what I saw last night has nothing to do with the job title. It has to do with the kind of person you chose to be when no one was watching. Someone clears his throat at the counter. Mr. Diaz is trying to pretend he is not listening, but his eyes are glued to them. A plate clinks in the kitchen window. The whole diner is leaning on this conversation. I cannot decide this in 5 minutes, Lena says. My life is not just mine. My mother depends on me. This place depends on me. Should not decide it in 5 minutes, Caleb replies. Take a day too. I will have my office send over details in writing, and you can show them to whoever you trust. He slides a slim envelope across the table. His movements unhurried. This has my direct number. And the contact for our legal team assigned to this block, he says. If any officer walks in here and tries to make last night your problem, you call. If any landlord representative comes by with threats, you call. You do not have to stand in the rain alone next time. The words hit something deep inside her. The part that remembers being a child watching her father argue with a landlord who had all the leverage. Lena nods slowly. All right, she says. I will read it. Caleb studies her face, as if confirming that is truly her answer. That is all I am asking for today, he says. He stands, leaving a few bills on the table, more than enough to cover a week of breakfasts. As he moves toward the door, the room seems to pull back, making space for the gravity that walks with him. At the threshold, he pauses and looks back. Miss Hartley, he says, whatever you decide, thank you for reminding me what my power is supposed to be for.
Ow.
Then he steps outside. The suit's closing around him, and the bell above the door jingles like any other customer has just left. For a second, no one speaks, then voices erupt. Lena, what did he say? One of the regulars demands, is he buying the diner? Another asks. Mr. Diaz hurries over, eyes wide. You did not tell him we are behind on the gas bill, did you? Did he say anything about the lease? Lena holds up a hand, overwhelmed. I do not know yet, she says. I need to read this first. She slips the envelope into her apron, feeling its weight as she returns to work. The rest of the shift passes in a blur. Every time the bell over the door rings, her heart jumps, half expecting the police, half expecting Caleb to walk back in. When her lunch break finally comes, she takes the narrow stairs 2 at a time. In her room, she closes the door and leans against it. Letting herself breathe for the first time in hours, she sits on the edge of the bed and opens the envelope carefully inside. There is a formal letter on Rowan Holdings' letterhead, written in clear, precise language. It confirms what Caleb said. Lease increases frozen for 5 years. No eviction proceedings allowed without his personal sign-off. Complimentary legal support for any intimidation related to last night's incident. The second page outlines the job offer. Community Impact Liaison. Modest salary compared to what he probably pays his executives, but more than she has ever seen in her life. Health insurance. A flexible schedule that would allow her to keep some hours at the diner if she wants. At the bottom, in ink that does not match the printed text. A handwritten line has been added. You have every right to say no, but if you say yes, I promise to listen. C. R. Lena exhales slowly. Her first instinct is to run from it. It is too big, too strange, too far from anything she is prepared for. She is a waitress with 1 unfinished year of community college and a stack of overdue bills. She is not a consultant. She is not a policy expert. She is the girl who draws flowers in the margins of order pads when the rush slows down. And yet last night, when it mattered, she had spoken up before anyone with degrees or titles. Mom will tell me to take it, she murmurs to herself. The thought sends her reaching for her phone. The screen is cracked, and the battery barely holds a charge, but it is enough to do what she needs. She stuffs the letter into her bag and heads back down the stairs. An hour later, she sits in a plastic chair beside a hospital bed, the monitors beeping in a steady rhythm. Her mother, Elise, looks smaller than Lena remembers from the days when she came home from hospital shifts full of stories. The illness has taken weight and color, but not the warmth in her eyes. You look tired, Elise says, squeezing her daughter's hand. So do you, Lena answers. Trying to smile, they talk first about small things. The rude patient Elise had years ago. The nurse who still stops by to check on her days off. The way the cafeteria coffee tastes like someone burned a memory of beans. Finally, Lena reaches into her bag and pulls out the letter. Something happened last night, she says. And this morning, she tells her mother about the rain, the police, the man in the hoodie, the card, the news report, the arrival of the black sport utility vehicles. She keeps her voice steady, but her mother hears the tremor underneath. When Lena finishes, Elise unfolds the pages and reads them carefully, lips moving slightly. When she is done, she looks up with tears in her eyes that are not from the medicine. Do you trust him? She asks. I do not know, Lena admits. He seems sincere, but he is also the person who owns the building that scares Mr. Diaz every month. Elise nods slowly. That is the problem with power, she says. It can hurt and help, sometimes in the same day. She taps the letter with one finger. But listen to me. Lena, you have spent years watching other people make choices that fall on your shoulders. This is the first time one of those people has invited you into the room. You may hate what you see there. You may decide to walk away. But I do not want you to turn this down just because you are afraid you do not belong. Lena swallows past a lump in her throat. What if I fail? She whispers. Her mother squeezes her hand. Then you will fail trying to do something that matters, Elise says. Not everyone even gets that chance. Lena looks at the letter again. At the neat rows of typed words and the single, imperfect line of handwriting at the bottom. Outside the hospital window, the city moves as it always has. Cars. Sirens. People who will never know that a waitress is trying to decide whether to step into a billionaire's world for the first time. Lena allows herself to imagine saying yes. Lena spends the night turning the decision over in her mind. Back at her small room above the diner, She lays the letter on the table and circles it like it is something fragile and dangerous. She makes a list on a scrap of paper, 2 columns labeled Stay and Go. Under Stay, she writes, Steady, Familiar, Mr. Diaz, Regulars, Mom can find me here. Under Go, she writes, Health Insurance, Better Pay. Real say in what happens to this block. The Go side fills faster than she expects. Sleep comes in short bursts. Every time she closes her eyes, she sees the flash of red and blue lights on wet pavement. The curve of Caleb's handwriting at the bottom of the page. Her mother's face when she said, I do not want you to turn this down just because you are afraid. By dawn, Lena knows that no matter how scared she is, the real fear is staying where she is and watching everything crumble in slow motion. At 8 in the morning, she stands outside Rowan Holdings' headquarters. The building is a tower of glass and steel, its mirrored surface catching the light and flinging it back at the city. People in suits stream in and out through revolving doors, badges flashing at the security scanners. Lena feels out of place in her plain blouse and thrift store blazer, but she straightens her shoulders and steps inside. The lobby smells like polished stone and expensive cologne. A wide security desk sits in the center, staffed by men and women with earpieces and efficient smiles. Above them, a massive digital screen scrolls through images of skyline projects and charity galas. May I help you? The receptionist asks. My name is Lena Hartley, she says, gripping her bag strap a little tighter. Mr. Rowan asked me to come. The woman checks her computer, eyebrows lifting almost imperceptibly when she sees whatever note has been placed there. Yes, Ms. Hartley, she says. You are expected. Take the elevator to 42. Someone will meet you there. The ride-up feels like lifting out of her old life. The city shrinks below, the streets and diners and buses turning into a pattern of lines and blocks. Lena watches her own reflection in the chrome of the elevator doors and barely recognizes the girl, whose hands are still chapped from washing dishes. When the doors open, a woman with sharp eyes and a neat ponytail is waiting in a small reception area. Miss Hartley? She asks. Yes. I am Dana, she says. Mr. Rowan's assistant. He is finishing a call. He asked me to show you around? Dana leads her through a maze of glass-walled conference rooms and open-plan workspaces. People sit in front of large monitors, moving digital maps of the city with quick, practiced gestures. Names of neighborhoods Lena knows appear on screens as colored overlays, arrows. Percentage signs. Lena slows when she sees a familiar street on one of the displays. A line of little rectangles labeled with addresses. One of them is Harbor Light Diners Building. A man at the desk notices her glance and quickly clicks the window away, as if he's been caught doing something he should not. Dana clears her throat lightly. This floor is development, she explains. They work on projections and acquisitions. It looks like a game, Lena says, before she can stop herself. Dana's expression softens a fraction. Sometimes it feels like that to them, she admits. That is part of why you are here. She leads Lena to a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows. The door is open. Caleb stands inside, his jacket off, shirt sleeves rolled. A phone pressed to his ear as he looks at documents on his desk. No. I do not care if the numbers work, he says into the receiver. His voice is calm, but there is steel underneath. If displacing those families is the only way, find another project. We are not doing it that way anymore. He ends the call and looks up. Ms. Hartley, he says. And for the first time since she stepped into the building, Lena feels a flicker of something like solid ground. He still sounds like the man in the diner, not just the name on the news. Come in, he adds. Close the door, please. She steps into the office. The view behind him is dizzying. She can see the river, the bridge, the patchwork of roofs and streets that make up the world she has always known from ground level. I was not sure you would come, Caleb says. Neither was I, Lena answers honestly. He smiles at that. A small, genuine curve of his mouth. You read the offer? He asks. Yes. And you spoke with someone you trust? He adds. She thinks of her mother's hand over hers in the hospital room. I did, she says. She told me I would regret it if I turned down a chance to actually change something. Caleb nods once, slowly. Your mother is a wise woman, he says. Lena takes a breath. All right, she says. I will do it. I will take the job. For a moment, the words hang in the air between them, bigger than either of them. Good, Caleb says quietly. I am glad. He does not reach across the desk for a handshake. Instead, he picks up a folder and walks around to stand beside her, turning it so they both can see. I want to show you something, he says. Inside the folder are printouts of maps, spreadsheets, and a list of properties. He taps the one with her block on it. This is the way my company has looked at your neighborhood for years, he says, as values, risks, and opportunities. I need you to help me see it the way you see it. As people, routines, stories. He points to a column of numbers. Tell me what happens if this line goes up by 10%, he says. Lena studies it. Mr. Diaz loses the diner, she says. The locksmith shop 2 doors down probably closes. The older couple in the walk up over the bodega cannot afford to stay. The bus driver who eats breakfast at the counter 3 times a week has to find somewhere else to sit at 6 in the morning. The neighborhood feels less like a neighborhood and more like a stopover. Caleb listens, not interrupting. He writes notes in the margin, his handwriting quick and slanted. This is what I need from you, he says when she finishes. I need you to keep reminding me that every time someone in this building moves a number. Someone out there feels it. Lena looks at him at the way his jaw tightens slightly, at the faint shadows under his eyes. What do you get from this? She asks. Really? He does not hesitate. I get to live with myself, he says. And maybe, one day, I get to stand in places like Harbor Light Diner without wondering how many people I pushed out of the way to build my towers. There is a quiet in the room that is not empty. It is the kind of quiet that settles when a decision has been made, and the only thing left is to walk it out. Then we have work to do, Lena says. Caleb nods, double quotes, yes, he agrees. We do. As Lena leaves his office later with a temporary badge clipped to her blazer and a stack of orientation papers in her arms, she knows her life has just split into a before and an after. Down on the street, Harbor Light Diner is still serving coffee to construction workers and night shift nurses. Up here, decisions are made that can either crush that world or hold it up. For the first time, someone from the ground floor has a seat at the table. The deepest secrets are about to change everything. Subscribe now to catch the dramatic twist that is coming in the next chapter. The first weeks feel like stepping into 2 different lives every day. In the mornings, Lena rides the elevator up to the 42nd floor, badge clipped to her blazer and notebook in her hand. She sits in meetings where maps of neighborhoods she knows appear on huge screens. She listens while analysts talk about underutilized parcels and maximizing yield. And then she raises her hand and says things like, there is a school across from that building, or the people in those walk-ups have lived there for 30 years. Sometimes the room goes quiet afterward. Sometimes someone sighs. But Caleb always looks at her and says, that matters. Put it in the notes. In the afternoons, she walks back to Harbor Light Diner and ties on her apron. Mr. Diaz refuses to let her quit entirely. You keep 1 shift. He insists. I want someone in this place who can walk into that tower and speak. Our language and theirs.
Oh, man.
Regulars tease her about being the corporate spy, but there is pride in their eyes when they say, and for a little while it feels almost simple. The lease paperwork is updated. The threat of sudden eviction lifts. A lawyer from Rowan Holdings comes by one evening and quietly hands Mr. Diaz a card, saying if anyone gives you trouble over that police call, you tell them I am handling it. Then the storm finds them again. One afternoon, Lena walks into the office kitchen to grab coffee and finds a group from the public relations department huddled around a laptop. On the screen, she sees herself frozen in a grainy still frame from a security camera. Standing in the rain outside the diner, one hand raised as she speaks to the officers. Underneath is a headline from a local blog. Waitress stands up to police. Billionaire saves her diner. One of the women from PR laughs softly. This is perfect, she says. We can build a whole campaign on this. Street-level hero, enlightened developer, Partnership for justice. It sells itself. Lena feels her stomach twist. She is not a slogan, another voice says. She turns. Caleb is in the doorway, tie loosened, expression unreadable. He steps into the room. The small cluster of employees straightens. No media campaign, he says. No press release with her face on it. If we are doing better, it will show without us turning a woman's worst night into an advertisement. The PR manager opens her mouth to argue, then thinks better of it. Understood, she says. We will focus on the housing initiative numbers instead. They scatter. Caleb looks at Lena. I was going to talk to you before they came to you, he says quietly. I should have moved faster. I'm glad you stopped it, she replies. Her voice is calm, but inside doubt flickers. He defends her here in the office kitchen. But out there, beyond this floor, other forces are moving. That evening at the diner, she feels those forces push back. A pair of officers in uniform walk in near closing time. They do not sit. They stand just inside the door, scanning the room until their eyes land on her. You, Lena Hartley? One of them asks. Mr. Diaz steps forward quickly. Is there a problem, officers? We are just here to remind Ms. Hartley that making statements about ongoing investigations can have consequences, the taller one says. His tone is polite, but the look in his eyes is not. Lena's pulse jumps. She remembers Caleb's envelope, the letterhead, the promise. She takes a slow breath. If you have questions for me, you can contact the attorney representing this business, she says. His card is right here. She reaches under the counter and slides the card across. The officer glances at the name and stiffens. Rowan Holdings, he reads aloud. Silence hangs for a beat. Then he pushes the card back with 2 fingers. Stay careful, Ms. Hartley, he says. They leave without ordering. After they are gone, the diner feels colder. Mr. Diaz shakes his head. You see, he mutters. You stand up once, they remember. Lena stares at the door, heart pounding. She hates that it took a billionaire's backing to make those officers walk away. She hates that without that card, she might be alone with their subtle threats. On the walk back to her room, as the questions crowd in, is she changing the system from inside, or is she simply protected by it now? Is Caleb using his power to shield others, or just the people who happen to cross his path? She does not know the answers yet. She only knows that every step she takes now is balance between 2 worlds that do not trust each other. And she is the one standing in the middle, hoping that the ground will hold. The next test comes sooner than Lena expects. A week later, she sits at the end of a long conference table on the 42nd floor. The room is all glass and polished wood. A digital map of the city glows on the wall, dotted with colored markers that represent projects worth more money than she can imagine. Around the table, executives speak a language of forecasts and returns. If we reposition the Harbor District properties now, we can increase projected yield by at least 15% over 3 years, one man says, pointing at a cluster of blocks. That includes the parcel with the diner. The lease freeze is a temporary obstacle, but we can still push improvements that will justify higher rents later. Lena's fingers tighten around her pen. Across from her, Caleb sits with his hands folded, listening. His expression is neutral, but she can see the small muscle in his jaw moving. The man continues. We've already taken a hit on the public housing initiative. Shareholders expect us to make it up somewhere. Sentiment is nice, but numbers keep the lights on. Several heads nod. Caleb looks down the table. Double quotes Miss Hartley, he says, bringing the room's attention to her. From your perspective on the ground, what happens if we follow this plan? Lena feels every eye land on her. Her heartbeat pounds in her ears, but she draws a slow breath. If you push those rents up after 5 years, she says, Mr. Diaz loses the diner. The locksmith closes. The laundromat may go next. The people who live above them will be scattered. You will have a beautiful block with no one who remembers what it used to feel like. The neighborhood will stop being a community and become a product. One executive shifts in his chair. With respect, he says, we are not in the business of preserving feelings. We are responsible for growth. Lena turns toward him. With respect, she replies, her voice steady. You are in the business of building places for human beings to live and work. If growth means throwing them out when they are no longer convenient, then the model is broken. The room goes very quiet. The executive opens his mouth, ready to push back, but Caleb speaks first. She is right, he says. He stands. Walking to the screen, he taps the glowing cluster that includes Harbor Light Diner. This block will not be used to make up losses, he says. In fact, I want this block to become our model for a different way of doing business. We will create a community ownership trust here. Longtime tenants will have a stake, not just a lease. Returns may be slower, but they will be more stable, and I will make that case to the shareholders myself. The executive frowns. Caleb, that is a major deviation from our standard approach. It is a necessary correction, Caleb answers. We cannot claim to invest in cities while hollowing them out. Turns back to Lena. I want you on the design team for that trust, he says. You will help choose the tenants who sit on its council. You will help decide how we measure success, and it will not be only in percentages. Something shifts in the air. Not everyone is happy, but no one argues with him directly. The meeting moves on, but the tone is different. The map on the wall looks less like a game board and more like a responsibility. That evening, the change reaches the ground. Lena pushes through the diner door at twilight, the familiar smell of coffee and grilled onions wrapping around her. A small group of regulars sits at the counter. Mr. Diaz stands near the register. Holding a thick envelope from Rowan Holdings, he sees her and waves her over, his face flushed. You read this? He asks, voice shaking. Lena takes the envelope and scans the document inside. It outlines the formation of the Harbor Light Community Trust. It lists the building's address, names the initial council seats, mentions a guaranteed cap on rent increases for local businesses, and a promise of renewal options that stretch further into the future than she has ever allowed herself to imagine. At the bottom, her name appears alongside Caleb. Rowan's is a founding member. Mr. Diaz wipes at his eyes with the back of his hand. I thought he would save us from getting kicked out, says. I did not think he would give us part of the floor we stand on. Lena feels her throat tighten. This is real, she asks quietly. As real as the bills they send, he says, half laughing. Only this time, it feels like the paper is on our side.
Outside.
The city moves on, unaware that on one small corner, the ground has been tilted just a little more in favor of the people who stand on it. Lena looks out through the diner window at the distant tower of glass where decisions are made. She knows there are still executives who resent her presence, officers who do not like that their quiet pressure failed, forces that will push back in new ways. But she also knows this, a girl who once only poured coffee and hoped to avoid. Trouble has helped reroute a river of power, even if only along one narrow block, and whether he admits it or not. The billionaire at the center of that power has started to change with it. Summer comes slowly to the harbor. By the time the first anniversary of the Harbor Light Community Trust arrives, the block looks the same from a distance, but feels different up close. The pawn shop still has its faded sign. The laundromat still hums. The diner's neon still flickers at odd moments. But underneath all of it, the ground is steadier. The panic on rent day has faded into something Lena almost recognizes as peace. They mark the anniversary with a small neighborhood gathering. It's not a polished corporate event. Kids chalk drawings on the sidewalk. The locksmith grills hot dogs on a borrowed barbecue out back. Someone's cousin plays guitar near the open door. On one wall inside the diner, a new frame has appeared. Behind the glass is the original diner receipt from that first night. Stay warm out there. L. Carefully preserved. Next to it is a photocopy of the police report that cleared Caleb. Ah! And a signed copy of the trust agreement with the names of the founding members. Underneath, on a small metal plate, are 4 words. One moment. Different future. Lena stands in front of the frame, wiping her hands on a towel. Watching people move through the little celebration, Mr. Diaz laughs louder than she has heard in years. Her mother sits in a booth by the window, color back in her cheeks. telling an old story to anyone who will listen. Lena feels a presence at her side. Before she hears his voice, "It suits this wall," Caleb says quietly. She looks up. He has come alone tonight. No convoy of black vehicles, no suits with earpieces, just him in a simple shirt and rolled sleeves. Like any man who slipped into a neighborhood diner after work. "You sure it is not too dramatic?" she asks. "The truth often is," he replies. They stand together for a moment, watching a group of teenagers pose for a picture under the sign. At the edge of the room, a few people look over at them with curiosity, but no one stares the way they did that first morning he walked in with security behind him. "How does it feel?" Caleb asks. "Being on both sides now?" Lena thinks about the months of meetings, the arguments over spreadsheets, the late-night calls about tenants whose names used to be invisible. She thinks about the officers who have not returned since the trust's lawyers sent a formal letter. She thinks about the way she still ties on an apron a few evenings a week because she cannot imagine leaving this counter completely. "It feels like I am finally standing where my choices matter," she says. "Instead of just trying to survive what other people decide." He nods, something soft in his eyes. "That is how it feels for me too," he admits. "For a long time, I told myself I was just doing what business required. Then a woman walked out into the rain and made me ask who I was actually serving." Lena smiles, a little shy. "That woman was scared out of her mind," she says. "Courage is not about feeling safe," he answers. "It is about who you choose to protect anyway." The music shifts to something slower. Outside, the sun slips lower, caning the windows with a warm gold. Caleb clears his throat. "There is one more thing I have been wanting to ask," he says. "Not as a client, not as your boss, not as a man who happens to sign your checks." He turns to face her fully. For a moment, some of the old tension flickers across his face. The guarded lines of a man who has spent years keeping his distance. "Lena," he says, "I came into your diner as a stranger you chose to defend. Since then, you have challenged me, infuriated me, and changed me in more ways than I can count. This block is different because of you. I am different because of you. I would like to know if there is a world where we build something more than leases and trust agreements together." Her heart stumbles. She thinks of all the nights they have spent arguing over policies, laughing in the office kitchen, walking the block at dusk to talk to tenants. The line between professional respect and something deeper has been blurring for a long time. "Yes," she says, her voice soft but certain. "There is," he exhales, a sound that is almost a laugh. "Then let us start there," he says. They do not kiss in front of everyone. This is not a movie with fireworks timed to the moment. Instead, he reaches for her hand, and she lets her fingers lace with his. The gesture is simple, but in it is a promise to keep using what he has to lift, not crush, and to keep speaking the truth even when it is inconvenient. In a city that often feels like it belongs only to the powerful, a waitress and a billionaire stand under a flickering neon sign. Holding hands in a diner that almost disappeared, one act of courage saved a stranger in the rain. Together, they choose to spend the rest of their lives making sure. That moment was only the beginning. Thank you for joining us for this cinematic adventure. If you want more untold or real stories of billionaire love and redemption, please subscribe and choose your next true heart journey on your screen now.